What's up, guys? Today we're talking about the fact that travel filmmaking can be a bit tricky sometimes. You know, one moment a cloud moves in front of the sun and suddenly your lighting changes. Probably generally don't really know what shots you want to get, and then there's also the question where you should store your files if you don't want to bring your MacBook everywhere. But don't worry, guys, I got you covered. Today I have a few easy to follow hacks or tricks for you that make your travel videos better and everything a little bit easier. Let's go! Monsky, what's going on?
Alright, man, are you ready for a trip?
My feet's already wet. Coffee! In Monjam here, that's like 45 minutes out of Chiang Mai, probably a bit less if you drive fast. In love Chiang Mai. Looks nice, and Monjam is a really nice area, especially for drone flying, so you might want to check that out when you're in Chiang Mai. That doesn't really make much sense. Can I close the door? It kind of works. So, arrived at the place, not really lucky with the weather, but therefore we'll have some clouds in the mountains. That could look nice with the drone. Anyway, let's start with the first tip, and that is about exposure. Exposure when you're on the go, when you're traveling, is always a problem because it's constantly changing. That's why many people actually keep their cameras at automatic exposure, but I personally don't like that because it constantly changes then as well. Like, your exposure during a shot is not constant, and also the EV value on your camera doesn't really indicate good how your image should be exposed. For example, right now my camera shows plus 1.6 while I'm actually perfectly exposed. So I would be underexposed right now if I would keep my exposure compensation value at 0. And that's why the way how I usually expose my shots when I'm traveling, and generally like always, is that I use the zebra functionality in my camera, because that's not just there to indicate that you're overexposed in certain areas. You can also change the number of your zebras to something that shows skin. So the trick is here that whenever there's bright skin in the shot, like here on this side on my face right now, and I turn zebras on, then you can see zebras on that skin, and then I know that I'm well exposed. Now, the numbers that you should choose, it depends a little bit on your camera and the picture profile that you're shooting in. On my Fujifilm X-H2S here, it works pretty good when I set it to 55% for my skin at least, but when you shoot in standard picture profiles, for example in non-lock, it's usually somewhere around 70 and 80 where you should set your camera. But generally when you shoot in lock on any cameras, it's somewhere between 50 and 60%. I would suggest you to just take a few test shots with different zebra values and try it out for yourself so that you know which value works best for your skin. What's important when you do that is that the part of the skin that you set the zebra for is bright. Like here in that case, this is the side where light actually hits my face. Now, when you're outside, you oftentimes have the situation that there is no skin in your shot, that you don't have a face or so. So what I do in that case is that I simply hold my fingers in front of the lens, and then I expose for the bright parts of my fingers. So I turn zebra on, and when the bright parts of my fingers show zebra, then I know I'm well exposed and that the background is well exposed as well. So little trick here, it's really not complicated, but that guarantees that your exposure is always right and you don't get all the problems with automatic exposure. It's also quite fast. 3 rooms. It's great for a holiday for a group. It's good, I even thought of the drone pilots. On my FPV drone now. Would love to dive those mountains. Why do you like the 70-200 so much?
I like the compression.
Is it your only lens?
No, I got other lens, but a lot of things to buy when you're married.
That's
you have
true,
a baby.
That's true.
When you're not married or not yet have a baby, buy everything that you want now.
By the way, that also leads us to the next tip, which is that you should always have a telephoto zoom lens with you, because telephoto zoom lenses are super versatile. And now you usually bring your wide angle for vlogging and to get all these wide landscape shots, etc. But think twice. If you stand in one place, for example, you can pretty much only get maybe 4, 5, 6 shots with a wide angle lens because, well, it puts so much in the frame, right? But if you have a telephoto lens, then you can pretty much get an infinite amount of shots. Like I have the 70-300 for my Fuji cameras, and with that lens I can get so many shots while I'm standing somewhere, because there are so many different things that I can get shots of with a tele-zoom lens around me, that I just have a lot more options. And by the way, I also really like when I shoot travel videos to get a few close-up shots, not just a few but a lot, because it shows more the textures of each place and I can really emphasize certain subjects.
I have wide angle. I do have wide angle, 50, 85, mostly fixed lens, 35, 16-35. But I do want to have the 105 and 105 millimeters.
24 to 105.
Yeah, 24, 105.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's a
have
very
that.
good zoom range for
Yeah,
travel. Yeah.
That's true, that's true. Yeah, but so far I love the compression for telephotos. Always look good for me. The downside for this is a bit heavy, but it's definitely worth it. But actually the one that you have Canon before, the RF, it's pretty light.
Yeah, the f4 telezoom lens from Canon, they are pretty light for full frame. But even now, like the lens that I have now is 70-300, which is actually 100 something to 450.
Yeah.
That only weighs 550 grams. Of course, it's not f4 constant. It's
But the 300, the compression is like
yeah.
so good.
I love that you can zoom everything on it.
That's true.
The sniper, yeah. Let's talk about another little hack that I never thought about before, but recently a company called Closen sent me a product, which is that one here, the Tainer. And now this is great if you don't know how to store your files on the go. Like, let's say you're flying your drone somewhere, got a few epic shots and you want to fly again later, but there's always a risk of crashing the drone. Then it's better to store your files somewhere, and maybe you don't even want to bring your MacBook on like shorter trips that are only maybe 2 or 3 days or so, but you still have to store your files somewhere. And this is where the Tainer helps. It's essentially a backup device. Like you have a 2 terabyte SSD inside, and then you have multiple ports here. Like there is a USB port, there is a CFast Express and an SD card port. No CFast Express Type A, sorry for the Sony guys though. And then from all these cards you can quickly back up all of your files. And there are some extra functionalities with it. At first, what I really like is that instead of only copying your files, it also checks the files if they are correct after copying. And there's also a USB-C port, so you can connect other SSDs to it to both transfer from the SSD to the internal SSD, or also to do the opposite, to transfer to an external SSD. And of course, you can connect that to your computer to transfer your files on your computer later when you're back home or in your hotel or so. And there is another feature which is super cool. When you have Wi-Fi available, you can directly upload all of your files to the cloud. Like I have it connected to Google Drive, for example. Now, it's not a perfect product, of course. There are a few things that I don't like about it. At first, it uses a Wi-Fi dongle, a USB one, to add this Wi-Fi functionality. I think that should be included in the device itself. And there's only an SD card slot, but not a micro SD card slot, which kind of sucks because you always have to bring the stupid adapters with you. I think that should also be in there. And the screen is also not a touch screen. It's still easily usable. Like, it didn't take me long to figure out how to use this device, but I would certainly prefer to have a touch screen. And talking about the screen, it seems like the preview function of your videos does not work with 10-bit files or 10-bit 42, I'm not exactly sure. Would also be good because honestly, who doesn't shoot 10-bit anymore today? We're living in 2023. So it's still a great device. It does the job perfectly. You can back up all of your footage and access that directly at home again. That's great. But it would be good in the next version that they take care of all these issues, and then there would actually be a perfect device. But it's already very good, and I can recommend that if you travel a lot and want to store your files on the go. Yeah, it's getting late already. Now, we talked about telephoto zoom lenses already, but let's be real, the standard lens that you will always have on your camera when shooting travel videos or usually will be a wide angle lens, maybe a 16-35 or something like that. Now, the thing is that this lens is generally good for travel because it makes it easy to capture everything that happens around you quickly and easily, but sometimes you want to have these more zoomed in shots that are more like 50mm or so, and that's why I always dedicate a button on my cameras to switch the camera quickly to crop mode. My Fujifilm X-H2S, I get a 1.38 crop, for example, so my Tamron 11-20mm here that I'm shooting on right now, which is a 16-30mm equivalent on full frame camera, would suddenly become a 16-40mm. Or if you're on a full frame camera and you use the 16-35 for example, and you activate this 1.5 times crop that full frame cameras usually have, you're essentially having a 16-50mm lens, so a lot more zoom range there. But that's for today. Now we're getting up early tomorrow for sunrise. I'm not sure if you can get something nice there, hopefully a time lapse or some nice drone shots, but it's quite cloudy. I'm not sure, we will see tomorrow. Monski! Yay!
Man. Time check, it's very early.
It's very early, yeah.
Not that far from our resort, 1 kilometer.
I don't want to walk. Time to set up a time lapse. It's looking good. Rain, orange sky, cloud ocean. What else do you want aside from the sun? I think we missed the best part already. Always be early for sunrise. You want to be there about 20 minutes before the sunrise actually starts, probably even longer. Sometimes you have a really nice foreglow. Didn't get that today because I want to sleep. But that's a good opportunity to talk about the next tip while shooting the time lapse here. Yeah, I look tired. That is regarding white balancing. It's like when you're outside, oftentimes clouds are changing all the time, especially on partly cloudy days. And that means that you would in theory have to change your white balance always, and many people choose automatic white balance because of that. But again, like if you have automatic white balance, it's similar to automatic exposure, changes all the time and your shots don't look the same. And that's why a technique that I oftentimes use when the white balance is kind of unpredictable is that I simply set my white balance to a Kelvin number of 6000, because usually for cloudy days you set a white balance to around 6500 and on sunny days to 5600, sometimes also 5500. So this 6000 is right in the middle, and that means that when I color grade my videos later, it's actually very easy to fix the white balance because it's always somewhere around 400 to 500 Kelvin off. What I also do sometimes is that I simply leave my white balance at either 6500 or 5600 completely, because sometimes it actually looks good, but that depends a bit on the situation. And I'm not like a technical shooter here in that regards, because I don't shoot for clients most of the time, and when I have clients they usually just care about that it looks good, but it mustn't look color accurate or so. So having the same number all the time is oftentimes not actually a problem as long as it looks good. That's about white balance. It's time to find a few more shots now. Can I see your permit, please?
Aircraft is flying to the first waypoint.
That waypoint time-lapse feature is so good. Like at the rest of the battery now, of my first battery, I just set the waypoints already at the very end. And then I could save that, start again with a fresh battery, because I want to do a 26 minutes time-lapse or hyperlapse. And it flies there automatically, and now it shoots the hyperlapse. Great DJI. Time to look at the time-lapse again while the hyperlapse is shooting. It's so good, it's all automated. Now, we did all the drone stuff here, right? And that leads me to the next tip, which is that you don't necessarily have to bring gimbals on your travels, because if you have a drone, you already have a gimbal with you because it's on your drone in the front, and you can use your drone as a gimbal replacement. Don't get me wrong, you don't get every gimbal-like shots with it, like for example this vortex shots. That's not possible with drones because they are not made for that. But when you just want to do some basic following shots, etc., and you want them to be a bit smoother than usual, then you can perfectly use your drone for that. You don't even have to fly it, you can just take it in your hand, do the duck walk, and you get very smooth and stable shots. But of course, gimbals only stabilize in 3 axes and not all, so to be sure that you are 100% smooth, I would actually suggest to fly your drone, but in cinematic mode, because that's very slow then, and you can even set that slower in the menu, and that means that you can get really interesting shots that don't look like you actually used your drone, but you did. And I would actually say there are sometimes also shots possible that you probably wouldn't get with a gimbal, especially if you want to fly like maybe 3 meters high or something like that for certain shots. It's especially interesting when you use the 3x zoom lens. A restaurant opens. That means coffee soon. Mansky, the restaurant opens. We need coffee.
All right, let's leave the drone, right? Caffeine is more important.
That's so sick. Oh, my coffee, my coffee!
Okay.
Actually came for the coffee, but well, tea is always good up here.
5G everywhere. We're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a mist of fog, but 5G, baby. Thailand, the best.
It's a little message to my home country, Germany. I'm like somewhere in between big cities, Dortmund and Cologne and stuff, in a train. And I have edge. I can literally not do anything with my phone. And here in Thailand, I'm on top of a mountain, like in the middle of nowhere. I don't even have proper kitchens here. And there's 5G. I love those small cafes up the mountains here. Anyway, let's talk about the next tip. Maybe showing you a little bit around here with this nice fog everywhere. Another problem that you usually have when you shoot travel videos is to get the focus right. Always. Of course, like in situations like that here, I would use autofocus with face tracking, of course. But oftentimes you have like shots, maybe sliding shots or so, where you want the focus to stay in a certain place. Actually, needs nowhere here. Let's go back. And to do that, I have another dedicated button on my cameras that when I press it, switches between autofocus and manual focus, or it simply locks the focus in place where it is right now. In most cameras it's called AF/MF, like a switch. On Fujifilm cameras it's the AF lock function. Look how much fog there is here. It's so good. That's why you should go in rainy season in the north of Thailand. Of course, you will also catch a bit of rain, but therefore you get views like that. It's epic, it's misty. I love that. Bro, your setup is clearly too heavy. You need Fujifilm.
Fuji fanboy.
No, I'm not a fanboy at all.
Okay.
I'm just realistic here.
All right, all right.
They have all the local markets here, the stuff that they grow in the mountains. No, I'm on carnivore right now. No plant food. I'm actually tempted to buy a wine. เท่าไรครับ
250 บาทค่ะพี่แต่ขอบ
ขอบ
คุ
คุณ ณ
ค่ะ
ครับ So let's come to the next clip, which is that you should always have a circular polarizing filter with you. It's also shortened with CPL filters, and the reason for that is that you oftentimes have situations where some surfaces or so reflect a bit of light, and that means that they lose saturation. It just doesn't look good, it looks a bit too flat then, and that is where a circular polarizer helps. You just turn the filter around and then you get rid of that reflection. It doesn't always work, it depends on the angle to the light. Usually a 90-degree angle works best, but if you shoot, for example, directly into the sun, you can't do anything with it. So it always depends a bit, but I found these filters super helpful. The filter that I use here is the Hyder CPL VND Pro something or so, and this filter is great because it combines a CPL filter and a VND filter. So I can set my ND first to get the exposure right with that lever, and then I can rotate the whole filter to set the circular polarizing effect. Did I forget anything? No. I think everything is there. Awesome. So I hope you enjoyed this trip and you learned something today. If yes, then please leave me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. If you want to learn more about shooting travel videos and all of that stuff, then check out my online courses. You will also find links to them in the description below. I see you in the next video.
Welcome all time.
See you next time.
Bye bye.
Oh, and definitely check this place out here. It's called In Love Chiang Mai in Mon Cham. Probably a good stay for your next holiday.